They thought their golden retriever had simply gotten overly attached to the new baby. 3 weeks later, they understood exactly what he'd been doing instead. Fenwick Aduba Whitlock had never known Barley to break a routine in his 6 years of life. Bedtime meant the dog bed in the corner of the bedroom, every night, without exception, until the week their daughter Winifred came home from the hospital. From day one, Barley claimed a new spot beside the bassinet in the living room, and would not be moved from it, not for treats, not for his usual bedtime cue, not for anything. At first, Fenwick and his wife Adaze found it touching. A big, gentle dog keeping watch over the new baby felt like exactly the storybook moment they'd hoped for. By the second week, though, the constancy of it had started to feel less charming and more concerning. Barley wouldn't leave the room even during Winifred's daytime naps. He'd taken to resting his chin directly on the edge of her bassinet cushion, sometimes for hours, sleeping in short bursts, with one eye seeming to stay half open. Adaze's mother, visiting to help with the newborn, voiced what they'd both quietly started to wonder. "That much fixation on a baby isn't normal for a dog," she said. "He should be able to settle in his own bed like he used to. If he can't disengage, that's usually a sign of anxiety, and it can turn into something you have to manage carefully as she gets more mobile." Fenwick took the observation seriously enough to call their vet, who suggested it might simply be an adjustment period, but recommended keeping an eye on it and possibly reintroducing Barley to his own bed gradually, using treats to rebuild the old routine. They tried it for several nights. Barley would settle in his dog bed for a few minutes each time, then quietly get up and return to the bassinet, lying back down in the exact same spot, chin on the same corner of cushion. That consistency would matter later. They didn't know that yet. On the 20th night, Fenwick woke around 3 a.m. to the sound of Barley shifting position more than usual, a soft, repeated motion that wasn't quite restlessness and wasn't quite settling either. Groggy, he almost rolled over and went back to sleep, telling himself the dog was just readjusting. Instead, something about the rhythm of it made him get up and actually look. Barley had repositioned himself so his body curved gently along the base of the bassinet, and he was looking up at Fenwick with an intensity that felt different from his usual calm watchfulness. Fenwick leaned over Winifred and noticed for the first time that her breathing had a faint, irregular catch to it, a brief pause, then a slightly quicker breath to compensate, a pattern so subtle it was nearly impossible to catch unless you were listening for exactly that. He and Adaze took her to the emergency pediatric clinic before sunrise. The examination revealed a mild but real irregularity in Winifred's breathing pattern during sleep, the kind that pediatricians monitor closely in very young infants and that rarely produces any visible daytime symptoms at all. It was manageable and closely watched from that point forward, but the attending physician was clear about the value of catching it early. If you're the kind of person who gets up to check even when you're half asleep and telling yourself it's nothing, subscribe. This channel exists for exactly that instinct. Dr. Solveig Kastrup, the pediatrician who saw them that morning, mentioned that dogs raised closely with infants sometimes develop a kind of positional vigilance around subtle changes in breathing rhythm, staying physically close and alert in a way that can look, to an outside observer, indistinguishable from ordinary separation anxiety. Fenwick thought about the past 3 weeks differently after that conversation. The refusal to return to his own dog bed, not an attachment issue to correct, a decision Barley had made and kept remaking night after night, about where he needed to be. The chin resting on the bassinet cushion for hours at a time, not overbearing affection, something closer to a watch he'd assigned himself the very first night Winifred came home. The shift in position at 3 a.m. that finally woke Fenwick up. Not restlessness, the one moment the signal became loud enough for a half-asleep father to notice. Has your dog's sleeping habits ever changed the moment a new baby came home? Tell us in the comments. We want to hear it. Winifred is doing well now, monitored closely and thriving. Barley still sleeps beside wherever she is, though these days it's a slightly more relaxed version of the vigil he kept those first 3 weeks. Chin still resting nearby, eyes still opening at every small sound, just a little less rigid about it than before. If this story mattered to you, subscribe so the next one reaches you too. Fenwick never did rebuild that old bedtime routine with the dog bed in the corner. Some nights now he just moves it closer to wherever Barley has already decided to be.